Hey, James, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, tell us about yourself.
Hi, Brian. Yeah, thank you very much indeed for having me. So my name is James Ellis. I am 21 years old, based in Stamford near Cambridge in the UK. Currently working for a company called Redgate Software, and joined into our inside sales team and have now worked myself through a couple of roles.
Yeah. How do you like it?
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, no, I love it. I came in to the kind of inside sales team. There's a brilliant culture that is there within the organisation. Have been fortunate to rapidly grow within the business. Have had a lot of kind of internal investment to try and help me to grow, which has been awesome. And yeah, the people are wicked. There's been
Yeah.
so many awesome opportunities.
And why'd you get into sales?
I think for me, we had a family business that my granddad built, that my mum took over from quite an early age. I've had kind of business around me, and then I turned 16, decided to put a charity kind of concert on with my mum. That kind of ended up being quite successful. We got about 3,000 people there in the end, which was really cool. And I suppose, yeah, you have those little light bulb moments in your life where you kind of look at yourself in the mirror and you go, I don't want to be at school for much longer.
What did
Yeah.
you like about school?
I think it was the structured sitting in a lesson, not really feeling fully engaged and feeling like I was applying myself as much as I could be. It had always been in the back of my mind that I knew that I wanted to get out, start working, start earning, start feeling independent, and start, I suppose, helping people in a business sense rather than learning about things that on a whole aren't always massively relevant when you work through your life.
Yeah. And that's it. I've done a couple of posts on people skipping college because I think it's kind of an outdated thing for a lot of people. But the classic pushback you get is, but companies won't hire you without a degree. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I think I have this conversation frequently, as you can imagine. I came straight out of school. Redgate took a big risk on hiring me, but I gave them the one promise that I would work hard in a room full of people. And I feel like that can get you a lot further in life than you're told as a child. I only know the UK system, but there is a strong emphasis on going through the university channel,
Yep.
and that is fantastic for a lot of people, and it's very useful for a lot of professions. But I'm not convinced that as many people need to go through that university channel as they currently do.
No, because I didn't go through the traditional. I went at night and worked full time during the day, and it was just an insane amount of work. And when I got out, not one person ever asked for my transcript, see my diploma, and I kind of felt like it cheated that I went through. It took 5 years. And do you feel it's something that hangs over your head, or you just don't care anymore?
I really don't care anymore. I got to the point where I was probably about a year in. I started to feel kind of in that intermediary period, like, oh, I'm kind of missing out. Some of my friends are going and doing what they want when they want, and then I got to the point where I started to work hard and I started to kind of improve as I was going internally at the job. That meant that having a degree at that point wasn't going to improve where I was going to be in the business. And I think at that tipping point, yeah, it was a very pleasing position to be in, to know that I wasn't going to look back in 20 years time and completely regret it.
And that's it, because I started self-taught engineer. Just bought a computer on my own, bought a book, played, had zero natural talent, and just developed it because I thought the engineers made the most money.
Yeah.
The engineers would take me out on sales calls, and they would hint about buying new cars. Like, how can you guys afford that? Oh, I got this big commission check and stuff. Oh, what was it? A couple $100s? No, it was like
Yeah.
five figures, right? It was
Yeah.
a lot of money. And I was like, holy smokes. Are you money motivated? I take it you must be to be in sales.
I also have this conversation quite a few times as well. I think the financial side is always a motivation, less now, but more in 10, 15 years time, and seeing the potential within the industry and where it can go. I think that now the main reason why I love what I do, I speak to new customers with new challenges all the time. I love speaking to people. I love being part of the team. I've gone over to Texas and I've gone over to Brisbane with work and done training sessions with the team out there. So doing kind of the overall experience of improving and being able to take that knowledge that you learn and then kind of share that with either your clients or people internally is massively important. But to say that the money has nothing to do with it would just be a lie.
Yeah. And how did you learn so fast? I mean, you're young, you moved up in the company really fast. What was your
Yeah,
process to go through that?
I think so. Um, I had some really key and strong people internally who supported me a lot. So from our kind of global VP of sales through to my inside sales manager at the time, put a lot of time into investing in me and almost empowered me to try and improve. And I was absolutely terrible at the start, absolutely terrible. My one of my managers around me actually looked over at me across the table and said that he was seriously concerned for my job. And I think bits of motivation like that at 18, 19 years old really kind of put me in the position of where I was having to go home and I was working long. I was working through the weekends to try and improve my technical knowledge and understanding and listen to podcasts like yourselves and uh, Josh Braun on LinkedIn and people like that who I could really start to expand my knowledge out with.
Yeah. And because at that age, you either, people either get stubborn or they're a sponge, where it's like, oh, they rebel saying, oh, no, I'm really doing okay. Or they say, well, tell me, hit me, tell me
Yeah,
exactly what I should be doing differently.
exactly. And I really, yeah, as you can imagine, I tried to go with the latter approach. I was around some really, really successful people who have done really, really well. And to be adverse to hearing what they think I should improve on would just be crazy. So at any possible opportunity, I just tried to always try and understand what more I could do. And even when I was supposed to be delivering training sessions to other people where I might have known slightly more than them, I think even going into those scenarios and being extremely open that actually you're all equal in that room and you can learn something off anybody anytime you walk in there has been a massive importance and a mindset that I've really tried to hold myself accountable to.
And what were you doing wrong?
Um, I think I think I could always work quite hard, and I feel like I could always try and apply myself well. I think some of the areas that people had to fine tune, I suppose, with me, being quite malleable at the start, was around probably my application of what I was learning. So I could learn reasonably quickly, but then actually then taking that into cold prospecting calls, absorbing the information, understanding it, and then taking that through into, managing small inside sales deals was probably one of the biggest challenges alongside getting my head around the technology.
Yeah. Well, because the technology is one thing, because you can always, leverage other people. Were you talking too much, talking too fast, not asking good questions? What were kind of the skill sets that just weren't there yet?
I was definitely trying to talk too much. I didn't have the confidence at that time to ask bold, open questions to get a long response. And I feel like that led to me almost preaching rather than asking. And
Conversation. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, you're right. And that sometimes meant that I was either thinking that I was putting words in a customer's mouth, and that actually the situation was a lot better than it was, or I wasn't getting enough information because I was talking too much.
Yeah. And I think that the next epiphany I see with salespeople and even myself is you go from thinking uh, from your own perspective and start thinking from the other person's perspective, being curious, interested, and caring about what they think and how they are reacting to the product. Is that something that there was a shift or?
Yeah, that was a big shift for me. I think there were two things around that, which was around bringing that equilibrium back as to the value actually that you provide in that conversation. So thinking of yourself as an equal party when you're having a prospecting call, and actually that you can provide value to them, that you're not just irritating them.
Yeah,
That was a big point. And then to come back onto your original point, it's something that I've definitely changed, especially with kind of LinkedIn messaging or through cold emailing. I think it's something that we probably don't do enough, is actually read out what you've written. And if that's something that you would probably say, then it's probably something that you should send. But if it's not, then you probably need to think of how you can word it. I
yeah,
think there's this idea that people, especially in the tech world, people go to work and then they lose all level of humility and a sense of
right.
humor, and we almost go too professional sometimes, I think.
And do you sell in the UK or do you sell all over Europe and the US, or what's your territory?
So I'm a named account exec into my accounts are mainly in Europe.
Okay.
I've got a few accounts across Israel and an account in Saudi Arabia. But we've then got split teams for the US and for the APAC and DAC regions.
And what's the persona that you're trying to communicate with? What's their title?
So the main title, so we speak anywhere really from development teams, so kind of database development teams, all the way through to IT architects and engineering directors through to CTOs. Really,
Yeah.
it's massively dependent on the on the size of the business that we sell to.
And those are real easy people to get access to, right?
um, yeah,
Yeah.
they are, if you've got their information and if you are in contact with them.
Yeah.
No, I think they are great people when you get to know them and when you get to speak to them. I feel sometimes the initial interaction can be quite challenging, and getting some people in those sort of areas to trust you and to trust what you're saying and trust what you're delivering, and actually coming across with real value, to make sure that they are believing what you're saying.
And how about like when you're doing cold outreach, they don't know who you are. It's not an inbound lead. Do you go top down or bottom up, or does it matter to you?
I think it's something that we are working on at the moment. So I personally believe that, especially for our business model, the best ways to try and I'm going to say attack in a non-aggressive manner, but from both sides. So trying to lead with kind of get a development team lead, and also try and get maybe the director of a development unit involved. So you can then try and drum up some interest from both sides of the spectrum. So you can lead with the business initiative approach and the kind of account plan structure of where the relationship is going to go, and then trying to lead with the kind of end user technically focused conversation to the development team, so they can then really start to get their head around what it might actually look like.
And how did you convince your manager to give you the AE role? Was that easy?
Um, it was definitely a process. Let's say that.
That's so polite.
It was it was a big risk,
Yeah.
for Redgate to take me on initially, and I had no real credibility at all. So I kept on trying to prove myself by saying I will go in and I will I will work as hard as I need to work, and my metrics will prove that. Unfortunately, what that then meant was people then started to see some of the work I was doing. I was then in a business development role and a sales development role before that. So some of the opportunities that I was passing over to our named and our global exec team were really good, and were opening up some really strong accounts for us. And there's nothing that speaks more volumes than that.
Yeah.
But it was still definitely a process
Yeah.
and definitely a big step.
And how was the transition for you? I mean, I guess you're still going through it, obviously, but was it
Yeah.
hard? Was it natural?
Yeah, it was definitely hard. I feel like I had some almost prior experience for kind of listening into a lot of the calls and having quite a close relationship with some of the account execs that are still in the role now that helped me a lot, which meant that I could then learn off them before I moved into the role. But it's definitely something that I'm still in the process of doing. You're right.
Yeah.
And the joy of LinkedIn now is that there are so many people out there. Of course, you have to vet what you're listening to, because there is somebody who's an expert in everything. But you have to. It is really good to be able to go onto LinkedIn and just see everybody's opinion, everybody's point of view, and listen to some content. I found that really, really useful in learning the role.
Yeah. Cool. And what do you think distinguishes you from the average sales rep?
That's a good question. I feel like work ethic and drive and determination is something that you kind of have either got or you haven't inherently. And I feel like you get that from being a product of your environment. My mum always worked very hard, my brother the same. And so I feel like I take that with me. So I'll always be trying to kind of be dialing through the numbers that we've got, completing the account plans we need to do, working through LinkedIn. And I would say that's how I definitely have differentiated myself before in the previous roles.
Right, but that's helpful, and hard work can make up for a lot of flaws or a lot of other things, but it only scales so high. What I found is that the more complicated the task, the much more it's brain activity. It's how you do
Yeah.
it, not just if you do it.
Yeah. I think I can think quite strategically quite well. So if I'm needing to try and go into an account, or I'm needing to dig through to find the right contact, and almost build that strategic approach of leveraging different parts of the business, whether that having our development team involved to try and kind of move forward with a deal, or having our pre-sales engineering team there on hand, and then leveraging the contacts and the relationships that I've then built. It then means that I feel like that's an area of why I can be successful. I would say I don't know whether this differentiates me from anybody else, but something I think I'm probably quite good at is building relationships with people. It's one of the main reasons why I went into sales. So with my accounts, where we have existing relationships, I'd like to feel like we get on quite well, and that then means that I can stick to an expectation that they have for me. And I've found that over the past 6 months, they're doing more than I would expect of them, which I suppose
And what
is
does
a good
that mean to
position to be
you
in.
when you say build a relationship? Does it mean it can be very opaque?
Yeah. So I think it's as an example of something that a deal that closed last quarter. I built quite a strong relationship with the key contact in play, and that was from the start. So from about January time, and was quite I would say it was quite a close contact initially. Build a lot of credibility around providing some free resources out there that he went off and had a look at. went off and viewed. And as that relationship then blossomed over, I suppose, a 5 or 6 month period, I was then finding that the contact was, it was becoming far more mutually beneficial. The contact was seeing the benefit that we were providing to them. And I was then getting random emails through the evening about things that they were doing at work, and updates that they had gone to their director with and how pleased they were. And then that contact effectively ended up pushing the deal through without me being heavily involved with the procurement process,
Yeah.
which was the position I always wanted to be in. And they still speak to me now, which is great.
Well, that's it, because that was kind of my secret sauce, was over servicing and helping, what I call the precious few, the people who are most likely to buy. Instead of a lot of reps, what they do is they hold back unless they get something. They're not going to give something, but it really works the other way around. You're not going to get anything unless you give something.
Definitely. This client they already were a customer of ours. It was around potentially adding some existing products into their portfolio. So I offered them about 3 hours of our engineers' time to work through what they already have. Then as the pandemic hit, then provided them with an extended trial key whilst they wrote a business case. And then that then meant that we could leverage to get some more information as to what their process looked like moving forward. And it just naturally worked to everyone being extremely happy on all sides, really. And you're exactly right. You can't expect to get all of the information that you need to create a sales plan if you're not willing to give even an inch, because it doesn't make sense in the real world. So why would it make sense in sales?
Yeah. And I always get so much pushback from my managers. They'd be like, oh, you should be charging for that, or you should be doing this. And it's like, it'll take 3 weeks to get a PO through for what we can just drive over there and do.
Yeah.
How do you
Exactly.
develop your sales skills? What's your process?
So we've currently got a new kind of sales enablement function that's happening internally, which is great. So we're currently then now reviewing everyone's kind of sales process and methodology and aligning that really nicely, which we'll pay fruition for, which will be great over the next 6 months. Before that, we had some sales training that happened internally, but it was more led by having internal working groups. We would then review some of the LinkedIn content that I mentioned, which is out there. And I would then kind of go off by myself, maybe read through opportunity plans that some of the key reps had closed one-on opportunities with, and really then trying to dissect what had gone well through those deals and try to then really dig into why has this guy just closed a very large deal, and how can I replicate that?
Yeah.
Really.
So, and what drives you? Is it competing? Is it just being better and better? Is it what's behind it?
I think I can't really put my finger on what it is. I feel like what really drives me is the ability to just improve all the time. I love jumping up roles, and I loved that process over the past 2.5 years at Redgate, knowing that I was improving and knowing I could see the next role that was there and that I had credibility internally, which meant that I thought I was going to get it, was an amazing experience. And of course, the ability to then see the average deal size that you're closing increase, knowing that then you're adding even further value and it getting more complex, is always then a fantastic challenge, because you know that if you're improving with how your sales execution, then you're most probably improving with what you're earning as well.
Well, yeah, and when you see it, and that's what's great about being young, is that the trajectory is pretty steep.
Exactly.
It kind of slows down a little bit after, just naturally, but you start doing bigger and bigger deals. Are you a competitive guy, or you just
Yeah,
You ever-
definitely. I'm definitely competitive. I played kind of sport throughout school.
Oh,
Played first team rugby, and have been involved in those competitive environments all the time. My mum comes from a very successful sporting background too, so that it's always been in my blood. Um, and yeah, if we have, especially in the sales development or the business development teams, if we had cool competitions, or if we needed to get to a certain op number, or kind of pipeline number, I would definitely make sure that I wouldn't lose.
yeah. And did you play team sports? Rugby's a team sport. Any individual
Yeah.
sports?
Um, Not really, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was mainly loving the team sport side. I loved the changing rooms before, and kind of being there on the sidelines, kind of when I was on the bench and things, and supporting the team. It was amazing, and that's what I loved about bringing it into the work environment, and having the opportunity of going over to the kind of the States, and going over to Brisbane, and them being able to feel like I was kind of adding value into a team again. It was really cool.
Yeah, because that makes you a little bit more well-rounded. Because if you're individual sport, you're competing. You see the guy in the desk next to you is your competition, and in a way it is, but it's really you're on the same team. You know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. And I think that that is how you can potentially get some hostile environments, and salespeople growing into quite internally aggressive people, kind of in their own teams, right? Because everyone next to you is your own competition. When in fact, if you just tried to start learning off how everybody else was working, I say reading those opportunity plans of where someone closed a $500,000 deal,
Right.
and thinking how I can replicate that, rather than thinking that I'm going to be better than them and they're not going to hit target next month. You know,
And that's it, because because you can learn sales skills from other people, but when they're selling the same product, there's so many nuances about how to make a deal bigger, how to make it faster, how to tell when you've got a false positive or it's definitely going to
yeah,
happen. Because somebody from the outside, they can give you the signals and their experience, but it's not exactly the same.
no, exactly. And I think that you have to have some level of kind of individual intellect that you're consistently improving, right? And that's why the sales training and the importance of that is so key. um, but it's almost trying to not reinvent the wheel, right? You've got to go with your own approach and have faith in your own ability, of course. But when somebody is succeeding and a team are doing well, then I'm definitely in the mode of being a sponge, and trying to see what you can take from those who are being successful, and apply it into your own environment, rather than coming in with your own pioneering change.
Right. Yeah. You trial and error it. And I think
Yeah,
people who come from performance backgrounds, sports, performing arts, get that in sales because so much of it is counterintuitive. That is much more about
exactly.
listening than talking. And the only way you learn that is you have a coach, who tells you, okay, don't do this. Even though it feels unnatural, do this because this works. And that,
100%.
right. And a lot of people in sales never get that. They stick with over talking, talking faster, having it be about pressure and tricks versus,
Yeah.
a strategy. Um, Now, what motivates you more, winning or hate losing?
What a good question. Um, I would say winning probably motivates me more.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I would definitely say winning normally motivates me more. I I hate losing, but then I normally try and park it and go, right, that's done. I'm not going to think about that anymore.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas when it's winning, I feel like that positive momentum can carry on for a lot longer than the negative momentum can from losing something. Because I think you can always take a step forward, look what didn't work, and then very quickly spin that into a positive of how it's going to change.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good perspective because I hear a lot of people will have strong feelings about it, because when you lose, I always tried to say, okay, I just paid that lost commission in an education. So whatever it was, I just paid that for a lesson. Now I can either ignore it or I can make sure I don't repeat it,
Yeah,
because we do the same mistakes all the time. We don't follow up enough. We don't have a next step. We believe something is real and it's not.
exactly. And I think that you can. That's why I suppose the winning drives me as much as it does, and winning internally or kind of between the team as well. But yeah, I think that if you concentrate on, my personal opinion is, if you're concentrating on not losing as much as you are on winning, then you probably need to think about the bit of the mentality that's coming with that as well. I try to focus on what will
What
be
you want.
positive rather than what might potentially be negative.
Right, because your mind naturally will focus on the thing that you're focusing on. If you're worried about
Exactly.
losing, you'll be thinking about how are you going to lose. And if you're thinking
Exactly.
about winning, your mind will be, how do I win? But
Yeah.
which keeps you up more at night, though? It's,
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? When you look forward to the next 18 months, if you've got good numbers, then you're going to sleep well. But if you haven't, then of course that plays far more of a weight on your mind than if you've just closed a really nice deal.
cool. Hey, it's been a great conversation, James. Where can people go to follow you and connect with you?
Yeah, so just search James Ellis at Redgate on LinkedIn, and then any connections, would be more than welcome. If you've got any direct questions, feel free to fire me an email, james.ellis@red-gate.com.